welcome to our ValEUs podcast series. My name is Dana Koldeyeva from Nazarbayev University in Astana, Kazakhstan. This podcast is a part of the ValEUs project, the Jean Monnet Policy Network, titled ValEUs Research and Education Network on Contestations to European Union Foreign Policy. It's founded from the Erasmus Plus program of the European Commission for a 3-year period starting from January 2024. This ambitious project, involving 20 partner institutions from 17 countries across 5 continents, focuses on scrutinizing the foreign policy of the European Union and the challenges posed to its values. Today, we are joined by Alexei Trochev, political scientist and associate professor at the Department of Political Science and International Relations at Nazarbayev University. Hello, Professor Trochev.
Hello, Dana.
Let me further introduce you to our audience. Dr. Trochev holds a PhD from the University of Toronto, and before joining Nazarbayev University in 2011, he taught at the universities in the United States and Canada. His teaching covers political science methods, international law, and post-Soviet public policy, and his research focuses on judicial politics, transitional justice, and law in post-Soviet states. Dr. Trochev has written on topics such as criminal justice in Kazakhstan and the role of courts in post-communist politics. So, which is specifically relevant as today we turn to Central Asia and examine the upcoming constitutional referendum in Kazakhstan. What motivates constitutional reform in semi-authoritarian systems? Why now? And how should the European Union interpret these developments through the lens of its own foreign policy values? This is going to be the topic of our discussion for today. And Professor Trochev, let me begin our podcast with this question. With the referendum only a few days away, what exactly are citizens being asked to approve? Could you briefly explain what the constitutional referendum in Kazakhstan is about and what are the key proposed changes? The floor is yours.
Yes. Yes, the referendum is scheduled on Sunday, March 15th, and it's a new constitution that citizens of Kazakhstan are asked to vote in favor or against. And right now, it's very clear that this constitution is its draft was published on February 12th, and citizens have basically 1 month to read the text and decide. Overall, this constitution abolishes the one chamber of the parliament, and this was the initial announcement of this constitution in September last year, when President Tokayev, you can see it here, he proposed to amend the constitution from bicameral to unicameral parliament, from a mixed electoral system to the party list system, and to be put to vote in a referendum in 2027. So he approximately estimated that about 2 years of discussions would be needed. And the announced aims that he proposed were to strengthen the legislative branch and to move away from hyper-presidential or super-presidential system. So this was his announcement in September. Right after that, he appointed a 33-member working group, and at that time it was called parliamentary reform. So these members of this working group were members of parliament. There was only one member of the Senate, which was abolished. There was some constitutional law professors, some members of President Tokayev's administration, and it was chaired by his state secretary, uh, uh, who he appointed.
Mhm.
So from beginning, it was called parliamentary reform. Um, so he estimated that 40 constitutional provisions and over 60 laws would have to be changed. Um, the rationale for unicameral parliament was that it would consist of professional members of parliament, so the party leaders, that this parliament would adopt laws faster. So the idea behind this change to unicameral parliament is about efficiency in adopting laws and regulations.
Mhm.
Majority of these laws, of course, are sponsored by presidential administration or the executive, the cabinet of ministers.
Mhm.
And party list elections. Why party list elections? Why professionals? The justification was given that professionals is what will help Kazakhstan to break through. And Kazakhstan does not need populists. Most of these populists were in the parliament were elected in the single member districts. They disobeyed party discipline and they made some outrageous statements that would, let's say, outrageous statements both for domestic, for citizens, and for neighboring leaders of neighboring countries of Kazakhstan. And
Mhm.
also, President Tokayev promised that citizens could send their proposals to improve constitution, to improve parliament online via two channels, two mechanisms. Then these proposals would be studied by jurists from the Institute of Parliamentarism, from the Institute of Legislation and the Ministry of Justice. So basically government legal think tanks. And then they would be submitted for to this working commission. So
Mhm.
from the beginning, President Tokayev, he insisted that legality was a key principle of his regime. So in
Mhm.
Soviet Union, as you can remember, it was called socialist legality. So right now, Kazakhstan, of course, is not socialist, so they simply use word legality. He
Mhm.
talks about law and order, a principle, and this law and order is used to legitimize his political regime and to contrast it against his predecessor, Nursultan Nazarbayev's regime, in which arbitrary rule, family politics, personalist decision making was entrenched. And
Mhm.
also he uses constitution to advance his policy agenda. So this principle of law and order is now fixed in the preamble to his constitution that is expected to be approved on March 15. So
Mhm.
this reflects a little bit this personalization of constitutional law, so that you create legal rules, you amend constitutions with specific needs and specific circumstances of individuals or groups. And
Mhm.
so we can easily name these individuals and groups, this president of the country and his family and the inner circle of his advisors. So, for example, in the constitution, you can see that there are the new proposal is to create an office, to recreate the office of vice president, which President Tokayev will personally approve. Uh, so this official will not be elected by the people. But
Mhm.
very often, everyone expects this vice president to be a successor, to President Tokayev. Right now, he has a state secretary. That position is not mentioned in the constitution, but the vice president will be mentioned in the constitution. This reminds me of constitution of Azerbaijan, where
Mhm.
president of the country has his spouse as a vice president.
Mhm.
Neo-patrimonial regimes, so these are personalist regimes, uh, they expect a very strong loyalty
Mhm.
from the followers. In exchange, the followers will receive benefits So, for example, in the constitutional draft, there is mentioning of support for creative industries. And creative industries, President Tokayev recently um, allocated billions of tenge to support these creative industries. So now constitution will mention creative industries. Same thing with the volunteering. So this volunteering creative industries, they are under a specific ministry of public development, which is again headed by a minister who shows extreme loyalty uh, to the president. And then finally, there are some minor changes in terms of the uh, human rights. So some rights are restricted. For example, constitutional draft does not mention the freedom of religion. It only mentions the right to conscience. Um, Same thing with the rights of NGOs. So all NGOs that are funded by foreign sources, they have to make their finances transparent to anyone in the country. Similarly, Constitution abolishes free legal aid to criminal defendants, free education, and free healthcare, which are guaranteed in the current constitution. So instead of free education, instead of free healthcare, the constitution mentions uh, that citizens would receive it, but they would not have to pay for it. Also, constitution abolishes the right to labor strike that is guaranteed right now in the constitution. And finally, which is relevant for European Union foreign policy, is that constitution abolishes the hierarchy, the superiority of international treaties of Republic of Kazakhstan to its domestic legislation. Um, so it simply mentions that international agreements of the Republic of Kazakhstan are part of valid law in Kazakhstan. But domestic laws, like they are not, they don't have, they are not subordinated. In other words, they may contradict these international obligations of the Republic of Kazakhstan. And one more thing is, of course, that president receives power to appoint unilaterally, for example, Chief Justice of Supreme Court, of Constitutional Court, of the Supreme Audit Chamber, and if for the officials that the president needs approval from the parliament, president has a right to abolish the parliament and call for new elections in case the parliament rejects presidential nominations. So these are the basic changes to the constitution.
I see. Thank you, Professor. And I am curious, like, why is it important for this change to be adopted through, through a national referendum instead of like parliamentary votes? What does it mean?
Yes, indeed. Kazakhstan had tried many ways of changing constitution. Um, Remember when in 2019, when President Nazarbayev declared his resignation, and when President Tokayev was elected, and he nominated President Tokayev as his successor in summer 2019, constitution was amended in one day by
Yes.
the parliament, and the capital of the country was renamed as Nur Sultan, and this constitution guaranteed all sorts of protections for President Nazarbayev and his ruling status as the chairman of the Security Council. But in 2022, after Bloody January in Kazakhstan, the tragedy that shook the nation, constitution, President Tokayev adopted his constitution, changed constitution and said that it would be uh, made through referendum.
Mm-hmm.
So referendums in authoritarian regimes are done to, first of all, show loyalty,
Mm-hmm.
to measure the loyalty of bureaucracy to the president and of the general population.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So this is one thing, to mobilize, to get people excited about politics,
Mm-hmm.
to confirm. Also, the referendum shows the level of support for international actors, for neighboring countries of Kazakhstan especially.
Mm-hmm.
How much citizens approve presidential constitution. And so this is potentially also can be done as a guarantee against rapid and frequent changes to the constitution if they are done through referendum. But as we see in Kazakhstan, it's very easy to call a referendum. Yeah. So in 2022 constitutional referendum, last year there was a referendum about the nuclear power plant, uh, which was also successful, and the current referendum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so it's also specifically in 2022, it measured also level of public support. It was like a rehearsal for presidential elections that Tokayev won.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Mm-hmm.
this is why referendum is necessary or is useful at this particular moment in time.
Okay. Yes, I agree with you. Like because when changes are adopted by a parliament, it's perceived as an like internal process, right? And when like millions of citizens turn out to vote, like it's like a social contract because like it means that people of Kazakhstan accept this change and also like show the and like support them, right? And yes, I agree with you. Like for outside, like observers, it might show that like this, like a referendum and this changes are like long term. Yes, and like will not be reversed when the political climate changes within the country, right?
Yes, but as we know that just like it happened with this constitution, so it was adopted in 95. Yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
was frequently amended, but every president, the new president comes and he wants his own constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And this happened also in other Central Asian countries. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I meant by personalization. So when you make
Mm-hmm.
rules, specific, concrete people in mind. And
Mm-hmm.
so this referendum then is um, is a one useful way because many people in Kazakhstan right now do not understand why you need to have a constitutional referendum. They just had it 3 years ago, and
Yes.
then now why do we need it again?
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is probably an interesting question. There are many conspiracy theories, so many guesses
Mm-hmm.
about why it's needed now. One indicator was that in Kazakhstan, in January, it was also was adopted the new tax code, and the minister of national economy, yeah, he said that well, we have to hurry up and adopt it because soon prices will go up. Soon
Mm-hmm.
we'll have to go enter in elections. So in January already he knew that there would be new parliamentary elections in summer that as required by the constitution, by this new constitution, because the old parliament will work until June 30th, and on July 1st there will be new parliament would be elected,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's one reason for why you need to have this referendum now.
Mm-hmm. And like in Kazakhstan's case specifically, like is this reform more about regime survival, elite restructuring, legitimacy building, or international signaling? What do you think?
It's all three. I mean, all three or four functions, like you said. I mean, the biggest risk or the biggest threat that the constitution that the political regime has is the succession, leadership succession.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that in 2019, Kazakhstan tried to do leadership succession, but it was not complete.
Mm-hmm.
We can say that only now this leadership succession from Nazarbayev to Tokayev, we can
Mm-hmm.
see that it's now taking place. And another issue is, of course, that there is a fear that the old ruling elites that connected to former president will try to strike back and revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is another threat that a leadership succession poses. So this constitution could be justified under this as a mechanism or instrument, I would say instrument, to reduce this threat. International signaling, yes, it's correct. For example, the constitution mentions that marriage, yeah, it defines the marriage as a union, a voluntary union of a man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is a clear signal to, let's say, the European countries, yeah, about this. These similar provisions are contained in other constitutions, in Russia, in Kyrgyzstan, uh, and so yes. Um, so this is why it helps for these three reasons. But legitimacy building, I do not know if it helps legitimacy because many people don't understand. They didn't read this constitution. They didn't get excited about this new constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Um, most people worry about rising prices, yeah, or job loss, because already with digitalization, some people are losing their jobs. And so these are main concerns of people. Questions like corruption, for example, yeah.
Yes.
Um, and so in terms of legitimacy building, when you change constitution frequently, yeah, it may actually hurt legitimacy. And this was the
Mm-hmm.
critique of Nazarbayev's constitution
Yeah.
that is now being replaced by this one. It was frequently changed. And so that's in terms of legitimacy building, I think that there are, it's not very clear if it helps
Mm-hmm.
to build legitimacy.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, like, do these constitutional changes align with the core European Union values, like such as rule of law, separation of powers, and a democratic accountability, or like, do they depart from them?
Well, specifically with rule of law, as I talked already about, the principle in the constitution that President Tokayev inserted is law and order. So law and order is only one goal or one ideal of the rule of law. Yeah, there are other ideals such as equality before the substantive fairness like human rights.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, and so when we talk about rule of law, it's a very security-driven uh, understanding of legality. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So you can adopt a law, but if it's unjust, yeah, if it contradicts fundamental justice like human rights, um, substantive human rights that are protected by the international agreements, then it would not uh, help. In terms of democratic accountability, we see that Constitution preserves the 1995 structure in which president is above all other branches of government. Um, and the parliament is elected only on the party list so that the voters vote for parties.
Mm-hmm.
Now, party registration remains the same. Restrictions on creations of new parties remain the same. Um, People who are trying to create new parties are sometimes exiled or put in prison. And so, in sense of democratic accountability, we do not see much improvement because everything is fixed on the supreme leader, on the president. Parliament does not have the power to conduct investigations. So in terms of democratic accountability,
Mhm.
uh, parliament remains subordinated to the president and to the executive. So, for example, it's still impossible to adopt a law if the prime minister is against it, because prime minister still has the power to say we do not have budget for this, we don't have funds for this for implementing this law. So in terms of separation of powers, we see that the president is above all three powers. Constitution also creates new constitution creates a new body, Халық кеңесі, which is a People's Council. That
Mhm.
organ, again, is appointed by the president. President calls for its meetings, and this organ is replicated or borrowed from the Assembly of the People's Republic of China. As you know, President Tokayev always praises Chinese model, Chinese examples, Chinese policies.
Mhm.
So this is the model that is supposed that would be supra-parliamentary or above the parliament.
Mhm.
Um, so there may be a potential rivalry between the leader of this council, People's Council, and the parliament, a member of the
Mhm.
speaker of the parliament. But we, the model, I mean, the threat is much higher that is posed by the leadership succession. So the constitution then again focuses on the future in terms of how to guarantee safe transition of power, yeah,
Mhm.
from current president to his hand-picked successor.
Mhm.
And there is already struggles, let's say rivalries begin brewing, yeah, between the old elite, between
Mhm.
Tokayev's preferred candidates, between nominees from suggested by leaders of neighboring countries. Um,
Mhm.
so this is why this constitution and designers of the constitution openly say that in these turbulent times when the international situation is in crisis, yeah, when the international law and order is breaking down, we need to have
Mhm.
a strong leader who can then uh, prepare, yeah,
Mhm.
Kazakhstan, or prepare a new leader to lead Kazakhstan after he resigns. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And how might this constitutional change affect Kazakhstan's geopolitical positioning, like between Russia, China, and the European Union, briefly?
Very briefly, it's not gonna change. I mean, there is a dream that lawyers can change geopolitics, that they can
Mm.
change certain rules of game. But
Mhm.
in reality, we can see that geopolitics plays a very important and influential role. And so Kazakhstan now is navigating this through through its foreign policy, yeah, through its
Mhm.
foreign policy towards Russia, China, United States, and the European Union. And in all among these four actors, European Union is, I would say, has the weakest influence. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
and so I don't think that this constitution uh, will uh, will affect any kind of change
Mhm. I see.
in geopolitics.
Okay, all right. So, Professor Troshev, thank you very much for such an insightful discussion. And we really appreciate your time and your valuable perspective on this topic. And the citizens of Kazakhstan are already looking forward for this referendum. It's like already 10 days, around 10 days left for
Yes,
this
yes, Dana.
referendum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana.